See, I think that alcoholics are, I've never met an alcoholic yet who felt like they belonged when they were drinking. When they were young, they always felt like they didn't belong. And this step is to help us admit what causes us problems in life, and then to hear somebody else say what causes problems for them in life. That makes us feel finally like we really do belong somewhere. Like I belong in AA. I've been involved in all other kinds of groups, and I've lived in a lot of different places, and I never ever felt I belonged there. But the one place I always feel like I belong, I can go to AA anywhere in the world, and even if I don't understand the language, I can sit in there and feel the feelings. And like when I was in Mexico for 2 months, I went to meetings there, and I don't speak Spanish. I speak a little bit of Spanish, like to rent a hotel or to order a meal, but I can't carry on long conversations in Spanish. But wherever recovering alcoholics get together, God is there, and I can feel that. That's what I feel when I go to the meetings. That's why I went to the meetings in Mexico. So what they're talking about here is that horrible sense of isolation, feeling like that we didn't really belong.
Mm.
And also too, in step 5, is that that's when we start to believe that we can forgive other people. Like my resentment against my dad was the strongest resentment I ever had in my life. And when I finally stopped resenting him, it was the thing that helped me the most was, remember that book I told you about, The Power of Now,
Yeah.
by Eckhart Tolle?
Mm.
Well, Eckhart Tolle wrote in his book, he said, if you still resent your parents, somewhere you believe they had a choice, and they didn't. They were doing the very best they could with what they had. They didn't have a choice. They couldn't change and become another person because you needed them to be that. And that's what helped me finally give up the last resentment that I had. That was the biggest resentment I had in my life, was against my father, because he used to smack me around and humiliate me, and you know, he did all the things probably that your dad did. And he was sick. Like, I have compassion for him now. He was raised by an alcoholic. I think my grandfather was an alcoholic. You know, the thing of it is my aunts and my uncles. I had, see, Uncle Jerry, Uncle Bob, Dad, Uncle Jim, Auntie Mary, Auntie Isabel. They always talked about their mother. All the time I was growing up, they never even mentioned him. None of them ever did mention him. They never talked about him. It's like he wasn't even there. That's why I think he was probably an alcoholic, and they had bad feelings against him because of that. So I'm not positive he was an alcoholic, because nobody will say, but I think he was, and that they didn't want to talk about him because I don't think they loved him. They loved their mother, obviously, because they always talked about her. They never even mentioned him. They never even said bad things about him. He just wasn't there. They never mentioned him at all. Strange. So what they're saying here is that this takes a long time, and you know, to be able to recognize and acknowledge our shortcomings. But the thing of it is, to me, is I don't feel bad per se about my shortcomings anymore, because I believe that my insecurity and my need to control and all those other types of things that I used to do and that I do less of now, all came from the fact that I wasn't raised like a normal human being. I think that if I was raised by a normal human being, I wouldn't have had as many defects, and they wouldn't have been as strong. Because when I first came around AA, I knew that other people handled their emotions better than I did, because I would get mad. I'd start swearing, and I'd jump up out of my chair. You're out of your fucking mind. You don't know what you're fucking talking about, you dumb cunt. You know, and I was like that. I was very volatile. And I knew that the other guys in AA weren't. I didn't know why they weren't. Had never occurred to me when I was new that they used to be like me, but they had calmed down because they had begun to accept life the way life is instead of the way I wanted to be. So, but I knew that whatever I needed, I could find it in AA. I had a sense of that somehow that if I stuck around long enough, I'd pull my head out of my ass and learn how to act like a human being.
Mm.
But I didn't really know how sick I was when I first came around. I knew I was a little bit off the beam, but I didn't realize how crazy I
Mm.
was.
Mm.
I think if I'd have realized how crazy I was, I would have went back to the bar and drank myself to death because it would have scared me too much. All the changes that I had to make in order to be able to be a happy person, you know. Big stuff, big stuff. Okay, hence, it
Mm.
was most evident that a solitary self appraisal and admissions of our defects based upon that alone wouldn't be nearly enough. We'd have to have outside help if we were surely to know and admit the truth about ourselves, the help of God and another human being. By discussing ourselves, holding back nothing, only by being willing to take advice and accept direction could we set foot on the road to straight thinking, solid honesty, and genuine humility. Yet many of us still hung back. We said, why can't God, as we understand Him, tell us where we are astray? If our Creator gave us our lives in the first place, then He must know in every detail where we have gone wrong since. Why don't we make our admissions to Him directly? Why do we need to bring anyone else into this? At this stage, the difficulties of going alone, oh, sorry, at this stage, the difficulties of trying to deal rightly with God by ourselves are twofold. Though we may at first be startled to realize that God knows all about us, we are apt to get used to that quite quickly. Somehow, being alone with God doesn't seem as embarrassing as facing up to another person. Until we actually sit down and talk aloud about what we have so long hidden, our willingness to clean house is still largely theoretical. When we are honest with another person, it confirms we have been honest with ourselves and with God. The second difficulty is this: what comes to us alone may be garbled by our own rationalization and wishful thinking. The benefit of talking to another person is we can get his direct comment on counsel on our situation, and there can be no doubt in our minds what that advice is. Going it alone in spiritual matters is dangerous. How many times have we heard well intentioned people claim the guidance of God when it was all too plain that they were sorely mistaken? Lacking both practice and humility, they had deluded themselves and were able to justify the most errant nonsense on the ground that this is what God had told them. I've
Mm.
seen that happen a lot. It is worth knowing that people of very high spiritual development almost always insist on checking with friends or spiritual advisors the guidance they feel they have received from God. Surely then a novice ought not lay himself open to the chance of a foolish making foolish, perhaps tragic blunders in this fashion. While the comment or advice of others may be by no means infallible, it is likely to be more specific than any direct guidance that we can receive while we are still so inexperienced in establishing contact with a power greater than ourselves.
I will read that. Our next problem will be the to discover the person in whom we are to confide. Here we ought to take much care, remembering that prudence is a virtue which carries a high rating. Perhaps we shall need to share with this person facts about ourselves which no other ought to know. We shall want to speak with someone who is experienced, who not only has stayed dry but has been able to surmount other serious difficulties perhaps like our own. This person may turn out to be one sponsor but not necessarily so. If you have developed a high confidence to him and his temperament and problems are close to your own, then such a choice will be good. Besides, your sponsor already has the advantage of knowing something about your case, perhaps, though your relations to him is such that you would care to reveal only a part of your story. If this is the situation, by all means do so, for you or to make a beginning as soon as you can. It may turn out, however, that you will choose someone else for the more difficult, the deeper revelation. This individual may be entirely outside of A. For example, your clergyman or your doctor. For some of us, a complete stranger may prove the best bet. The real test of the situation are your own willingness to confide and your full confidence in the one with whom you share your first accurate self survey. Even when you have found the person, it frequently takes great resolution to approach him or her. No one ought to say the AA program requires no willpower. Here is one place you may require all you have got. Happily, though the chances are that you will be in for a very pleasant surprise which, when your mission is carefully explained and it is seen by the recipient of your comments how helpful it can really be. The conversation will start easily and will soon become eager. Before long, your listener may well tell a story or two about himself, which will place you even more at ease. Provided you hold back nothing, your sense of relief will mount from minute to minute. The dammed up emotions of years break out to their confident men and miraculously vanish as soon as they are exposed. As the pain subsides, a healing tranquility takes its place, and when humility and serenity are so combined, something else of great moment is apt to occur. Mignonet, once agnostics or atheists, tells us that it was during this stage of step 5 and he first actually felt the presence of God, and when those who had a faith already often became conscious of God as they never were before. These feelings of being at one with God and men, this emerging from isolation through the open and honest sharings of our terrible burden of guilt, brings us to a resting place where we may prepare ourselves for the following steps towards a full and meaningful sobriety.
Right on. What I like about here is they they separate the difference. Like when they say when you're looking for someone, uh, it says here, we shall want to speak with someone who is experienced, who not only has stayed dry, but has been able to surmount other serious difficulties. And I think that's one of the things that I like about step 12 is it says when we're drinking we have these certain things, and then when we're sober we have these other things, but the other things are still making us unhappy whether we drink or not. And when they talk about when AA's first went out, like AA started in 1935, and then it grew like crazy, and then in 1940, I think it was 1940, AA started to go into the services. They were in the Navy, they were in the Air Force, they were in the Army, they were in the Marines, and they were sent all over the world. And they asked if the faith that AA's had helped them when they were overseas, and they said yes, that faith did help them, that they had fewer alcoholics relapses or emotional binges. And I think that I really like that the 12 by 12 separates when we were drinking from when we were sober, because when we're sober we have this whole idea of we want to look normal, we want to have a normal life, and what happens